Welcome to Total Wine and More. It's much more than a wine store. It's the eighth wonder of the world.
When people talk about Total Wine and More, they get a little carried away. We're just a big, friendly place run by people with a passion for wine and beer.
8,000 different wines, 2,500 different beers.
Maybe we are the eighth wonder of the world.
Come explore at our 12 Northern Virginia locations, now open in Reston at Plaza America Center, across from Whole Foods. Shop online at TotalWine.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
Alternative facts.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States government. At 12:07 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, numerous unidentified objects of unknown intent and unknown origin were detected at high altitudes over multiple locations of Earth's outer space by the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, and these objects are presumed to be some form of controlled aircraft. It is not known if more of these aircraft will arrive or if they will attempt entering Earth's atmosphere. United States citizens are encouraged to monitor local media outlets as more updates will follow as information becomes available. The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States government. Attacks by the undead have been reported in several states across the country. The dead are rising from their graves and are attacking the human race. At this time, it is expected that more attacks of this nature will occur in several other states in the next few hours. The intent behind their attack is unknown at this time. He has been observed that a bike or exchange of fluids is a method of transmission. This is an extremely dangerous situation if they crave the taste of human flesh. It is not known whether this event will last for hours, days, or even longer. Stay calm, as authorities have been dispatched to deal with these creatures. An all-clear siren will be sounded when this situation is under control. Pacific Standard Time, nor is detected a long-range nuclear missile launch. This missile is believed to be headed in the direction of all residents within a 400-mile radius of this area should seek a fallout shelter immediately.
Welcome to Within the Chaos with your host, Rodney Shortridge.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. You can listen in by going to blogtalkradio.com/Within the Chaos, or listen in by phone. You can dial 323-870-4197. And you can also call in to ask questions to our guests at the same number, 323-870-4197. From deep within the heart of the Appalachians, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you all for listening to Within the Chaos. My name is Rodney Shortridge, and I'll be your host tonight. Sorry, I had my mic off. Well, tonight's guest, I'll go ahead and do the intro before she gets on here. Tonight, our special guest is Raven de la Croix. Now, I hope to God this hillbilly got that right. Raven is an actress, a Hells Angels wife, a minister, nurse, drug rehabilitation counselor, artist, magical clown, paintress, henna, arts for the stars, spiritual counselor, and intuitive communicator. Before I go any further, let me see if she can hear me. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay!
Excellent.
Yay, it worked. And I also could see you for a second.
That was so funny. I just finished going to the park with my two beautiful Scotties. Scottish Terriers are my hearts of animals. And then there was a windstorm, so it was wonderful, but I didn't like it in my eyes and in my mouth. So I had to, so you caught me clearing the wind from my person. And,
All right.
That
was
didn't
just
sound
like,
right.
what did you do?
Did not.
I'm sorry, I cracked up when you sent your message going. I didn't realize I was recording.
It just don't you show that to anyone. So it's so funny. Well, this is April Fool's late in the game. How's that?
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, that's what we'll say it is. Okay, yeah.
Well, thank you for introducing the first third of my life. I'm almost dead, so I've lived a couple of different segments after that, and I hope it's all right that I'm silly. That's the way I feel right now.
You can be silly, you can cuss, just don't cuss me out because I get sensitive.
Well, I do too, and the thing is, if you're really doing anything less than lovingness, we got the virus. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got to be that which you think the whole world should be. You have to be that love, even if everyone's cranky around you, sticking with your thorns. It's sort of like, you got to make that decision because this is the tipping point on this planet in so many levels. And I'm old enough to have traversed, some really interesting segments from, the UFO aspects to contact to how I observe the world and what I've learned. And I have an end game that's fun. It's fun, and everyone's going to want to play. This is not superficial. This is alchemy. Because when those things with a wave, everybody goes the wave, no one knows what they're doing. They're just in this wave, almost like a school of fish. It has a very heart-opening effect. And all my careers ultimately had a theme of certain sonics, certain music, certain sounds. And it carried me through all the segments of different experiences I've had in my life, from soup to nuts, whatever. I just thought I never could commit to one thing. It just seemed limiting. And this is when I was a kid and I didn't really know what I didn't know, or I don't know anything now, mind you, but I learned a few things that I would be happy to share.
Oh,
but
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to end that sentence. I know I'm rather long-winded, but that's just the way I operate. I'm one of those scientists in one way, and I have to apply it, to make it real. So I have long sentences. Basically, I just wanted to end that segment with just my realization, and what brought this up is when you mentioned, the first, areas of my life, all the fun things and amazing adventures. And what I gained from that is I got to see humanity from so many different aspects that it blows you don't have an ego. You're born with the structure, and then we all kick in the bag and try to get out of it one way or another in some story. But the ultimate thing is the breakthrough through all these lives and seeing all these people and all this heartbreak and all the pain in the world. And I'm going, can't be it, come on. It's like we have so much ability, so much talent on this planet, so many good hearts that you don't have to have a talent. You just have to love. That's the most valuable gift in the whole entire universe. And what do? They degrade it. And I'm not speaking from a viewpoint of some opinion. I've walked these lives, and I got to befriend people who were caught, and all of us in a different story, So it's all equals what you emanate as a person, That's really all that matters because, say someone pulls the plug tomorrow, and if you're screaming and carrying on and not present, you get kicked to the side. And I think to me, that would be my worst fear. Like, oh my God, we don't have conscious death on this planet. It's like I want to be awake and aware, and I don't want to be against anything because that's a trap. You can make a decision by the movies that are playing in real life, but when it all comes down to it, it boils down to my favorite fairy tale, and that's Pinocchio, because it's created, got the physique, where the physical, his little body, but to develop his character. So he goes through Earth, it has all these horrible choices, really. What we eat, what we listen to, what we put up with. Oh my God. And then what we really want, is to be loved and loving. I don't care what life, I've walked through many. And that's the common denominator. So I thought, well, what can we do about it? It doesn't have to cost money because that's a trap, So that's what brought me onto this segment when you told me, you reminded me of these things, and I looked at my boot camp that I've been in training, because I could have chosen one of those lives and been very comfortable, but I've got this itch, and it's just like we should be having a great time. We have these bodies, we're on this incredible planet, we have all this beautiful music, and we have, so much good, and yet the froth that comes off into humanity is like, Trump and all this stuff. People dying, what they ate. The hell is that? So anyway, that was one of my aha moments. And that's a short story, but it's just the way. And so it leads me to hello, and thank you.
Well, hello. How are you doing?
I guess I'm.
The first question I want to ask is because I found this so fascinating. I know it's kind of starting in the beginning because
No, it's all right. I'm here. I'm here for you. Whatever you want to know.
Your family. Can you tell us about your life and your family, your grandparents, and your parents? Because what I've read is just fascinating. You don't hear that story much around here. Well, actually, not at all.
Oh, well, it stands to reason that I would have inherited, like in the Matrix, you have these programs, and it's like honoring the ancestors to me is not hanging by hooks and bleeding and suffering for the ancestors. It's taking all the good stuff, deleting the old files, and upgrading. I mean, we are biological computers, after all. So anyway, I happen to have some very interesting lineage, especially on my father's side. And so I guess that's where I get my chutzpah from, to be able to, my put it this way, my higher self gets my lower self in trouble all the time. I see the vision, and I commit to it, and then I'm terrified. I'm going, what? I'm going to do what? And I've done that my whole life because never would I have ever, getting back to your question, decided on those careers and those activities. It's just sort of where life led me, and then I had an opportunity, and I said, they want to do this, and I was learning as I go, which is, I think, training, because how else am I going to do what I'm going to do next? So when I was in my family, on my mother's side, there's also very interesting lineage, but having to do with secret societies, like my grandfather on my mother's side was at the Scottish Black Watch, you know, and then we won't go into detail because it's too vast, and I'd have to have it in front of me to be accurate, you know, and more about the concept this evening, and like the people that came over on the Mayflower or something like that. I mean, I'm not into identifying with those things except seeing the library, which I learned when I was kind of being introduced to the holographic universe and simulations and how you can learn to navigate in your simulation instead of just ending up as, you know, file fodder at the end of your run. You know, it's not really where I want to go. So looking back, and I have to answer your question from looking back because I have a different viewpoint now than I did then. When I was growing up, I felt pretty abused, but not as bad as other kids who get abused. It's typical abuse, hidden abuse. And my parents were not bad people. They were just uninformed people like most people are. We still are. We learn in octaves, but there's so much we don't know. So we do what we do. So I'm not a victim. But it was sad because I was so sweet. And it was like having to observe things from a very loving, clear point of view, and then eventually taking it personally, saying, man, I must be really a bad person, you know, and to have this behavior. And later on, of course, with experiences in the paranormal having to do with actual interdimensional contact, different types in different ages of my life, you know, different scenarios, till the point where I realized I was in training. And then it became really fun and a little scary sometimes, not because of the scariness, but because of the energy, because sometimes if you take an elevator from the basement to the penthouse, you kind of get dizzy sometimes. I would. Anyway, it's like that. And so I looked at, you know, the parents I had chosen and the things that we got from there. With my stepfather, it was the military, so that's how you get into the whole turning over your DNA thing, you know, easy peasy. And I don't have any conspiracy fixations. I know that all the scenarios exist. I look at it like it's theater, and there's all these stories going on, and your energy and your decision decides what movie you're going to live, and you can change the movie if you want. So I know it seems like I'm on a tangent, but it actually, I said I was looking back, you know, my UFO abduction experiences as a young child with the Greys, the doctors, coughing out an implant at 10 years old and not realizing what it was, but I knew it was something, and I couldn't find it. It was in an empty hallway. It was like a corn kicks type of looking thing, a fleshy implant. Very interesting things, that shaking President Kennedy's hand and getting a download of what politics really was, and I'm certainly not interested in it at all because it's just a distraction, you know, takes the power away from the people and thinks you need some kind of an egotistical figurehead. But anyway, it's the simulation that seems to be shared by many. So looking back, you know, I wanted to be close with my parents. They were having trouble. I was the oldest of 8 kids. That's hard, you know, New York City. And then I had another life after that. You know, I think I said I was the oldest of 8 kids, yes. And then the family had all these problems, but when I got older, I studied this stuff. I said, oh, that's what the world's suffering from. So I got to live in an environment with all these things of, instead of blame and shame, you know, it's not. It's navigating through these places and maintaining your individual dignity, just as a being, the right to be. Anyway, that's always been my thing. In order to be obsessed like me with sound and bringing up the DNA and all this stuff that I'm into, that's so much fun. It's like it's alchemy. So I'm usually focused in explaining things on both sides of the hemisphere here. My childhood was, I couldn't wait to get out, and married. You know, I didn't know what, I was very naive. I mean, I had integrity, not that kind of naive. But I believed in, you know, if someone says they love you, well, they do. why would they tell you that? I had no clue about what was going on the planet. And consequently, my partner in his phase of life didn't know what was going on either, so that's typical. And so that led to my being interested in humanity and being a nurse. And then I felt like Bones in Star Trek, where I looked around and I didn't put my pieces together. I didn't know about the UFOs. I didn't know what the DNA thing. I didn't know anything. And all I can do now is know about. Who knows anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we put together. So, in my long-winded way, did I answer anything?
Oh, that's fine. Well, now I'll jump forward a little bit because, you was in a movie business and TV business for a while. Can you tell us, what got you started down that road? And
well, you know what? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And what?
Well,
what
which one was your favorite one to do, and which one was your most difficult role you played?
Okay. All right. Well, after marrying and having my son and moving to California and starting a life there, and then the marriage didn't work out very quickly. I'm not into alcohol, and it's not a blame. The poor man's since expired. But that was my first marriage, and so here I was with a child in Los Angeles, San Bernardino, then Los Angeles, and I was building like a treehouse type of setting in this place I rented in Hollywood Hills with my son and my animals. And so I got hungry and I went to this restaurant not too far away, Joe Allen's, and got a salad. And I was approached by, I didn't know who that was, Samantha. I was actually at the time working for Far Out Productions. That's War, Jimmy Witherspoon, Eric Burden, Ronnie Laws, Tanya Tucker, that bunch of artists, and at the time. So anyway, I'd gone to get the salad. Samantha Mansour from Eddie Foy Casting, I found this out later, asked if I could act. And so I was being silly like tonight. And I said, well, every day of my life, except it's real. And so she laughed and she said, would you read for a movie? I said, what movie? They said, oh, it's like a cartoon. It's like Little Abner. It's a cartoon. And the man is known. She mentioned Russ Meyer, but I didn't know who that was. And, I went on the interview. So I never been on an interview for a film before, and it was so classic that I have to actually do a charcoal drawing of this scene when I walked in, and I saw Russ Meyer in his fedora hat, like Dick Tracy, with his, overcoat. I guess he had just gotten in for the appointment, and Samantha said, "Just wear what you're wearing now. Don't wear anything else. Just exactly what you have on now." So I said, "Oh, okay." So, later the story sounds absurd because when you find out who Russ Meyer is, people have preconceived ideas about people in that business that, they're rude or they're passing boundaries or, inappropriate. And he was none of those things. He was a gentleman and very much into the military. And he even ran the set like military. And I used to say, what's the next shot, Chief? I was out in nature. It was so beautiful. And he didn't tolerate anybody using foul language or making any comments because there was never any real sex going on in those movies. It was just comic book stuff. And so he would say, to no crew. He fired a cameraman on the spot because the cameraman muttered something during a scene. And, there's no sex, so I don't know who was muttering. But he got fired. We had to wait 2 days for another cameraman. So very unusual, situation. So that was kind of like a, like a family of characters. And in the middle of the redwoods, and Russ would be cooking, cooking the food. That's one thing he was generous with. And he'd make the cooking, and we'd sit as a family. And that's, pardon, I had to take a drink of water. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
But he, that was how he had family, his films. And, he only made a handful of them, but they'll live on. It was really, so that was my most fun because I got my first film. I was the lead in the film. I did my own stunts. I designed the wardrobe. I did my own makeup. Ushi Daiger helped me. She's very well known. And it was like in the middle of nature. It was like a fairy tale comic book because there was the only things that were kind of hard to watch because it was so beautiful out there is his obsession with, chainsaws and all this stuff. And here you have this beauty and this comedy, and then you have this horror thrown in there. So, have you ever seen any of those films or that film?
Oh yeah, I watched Up and some of your other stuff you've done back when I was a kid, and I never thought that I'd be talking to you. So this was kind of like an honor, and also one of those. Like, I'm not worthy moments.
Oh, hey, listen, you only attract what you attract because you're on the same wavelength or similar wavelengths or share a wavelength. So, you're talking to the crazy lady scientist here.
You're talking to the crazy paranormal dude here, so hey.
No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, it takes a lot. If people can only relish in seeking their kind of frequency, that's the way I look at it, that is pleasing to them. And then the pods of us that are on, we're all different, but we can bring things together and share that makes a bigger picture. Like the body has so many parts to it, it's uncountable, both physical and energetic. And that's the way our lives, we have to learn to flow that way so that we're not so interiorized into getting down the street. Sometimes I wonder how I do it. How do I get You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's just too much. The traffic is out there. And I don't mean cars, just everything. Don't you feel that? You feel, that things around you, whatever you invest in your time in, that it's kind of speeded up in a way. I live in Sedona. Yeah, right? Doesn't it feel
crowded? I don't like being crowded.
No, I understand that, and I don't just mean physically. I'm in Sedona. It's gorgeous here. I mean, you look out any window, walk down any street, and I feel like I've already gone to heaven. So I'm enjoying it, and because it's still. When I lived in any city, I did so many things. I don't know how I did all that stuff. How did I get all that done? You know what I'm saying? In the city, it takes longer to do everything, and here. It seems like things are going energetically so fast that it just seems very interesting space.
Oh, I love it.
And
I drove a truck. I used to drive a tractor trailer out to California every week, and when I go through Arizona, New Mexico, and that area, I just I fell in love with it.
Isn't it nice? What did you see?
I said it's a different vibe. I even felt like the first time I went into Arizona, I felt like I've been here before. I know it's that deja vu type stuff, but I'd never been.
No, but you know what? That you're up my alley now. That is actually true because it may not have been in that body. It could have been in your, I don't want to say altered space. When you go places, when you bilocate or you're having an experience, you know what I'm saying? In the dream state, maybe you have it. So what happens is you identify with certain energies based on the energy that you are. It's like nobody does it to you or for you. It's if we comprise of a certain crystalline energy structure of what we're emitting, just us, one individual, no matter how or why we're emitting what, that is your vessel that actually decides the quality of experience that you will have in life. That sounds complicated, but it's actually a relief. Because everyone's looking at like it's everybody else's fault, and it's the economy, and it's the president, and it's my neighbor, it's my mother, whatever. But it isn't. It's whatever happens. Like there's a famous saying, I still work with it, but it took me 4 years of realizing, like many times a week, I'm going, dang, that is so true. And this is it. In life, circumstances matter, materialize. That's the physical. That's the result. Okay? But state of mind matters, because that is what you manifest. It's a manifestation which is senior to the result, which is the circumstance. So say people are in a slump. They live in a certain life. They have bills. They have problems with relationships, and they're not counselors. They're not studying either. It's very difficult. And all of that is going on. That becomes the frequency that you're investing in. But when reality sucks, don't invest in it. It's sort of a warning sign. Warning, you're in the dumps. That really hit you. You're down now. So what are you going to do? People self-medicate or they, go into a depression or into, one other emotion or another. There's a scale of them, anger, despair. So, and instead, like, why would you go, this is how I saw it when people would come to me and we'd work on this. And it's like, if you assume a feeling, then, and it doesn't feel good, there has to be a thought or a belief that you have that feels really good. And when the other person or situation or circumstance, whatever story, puts that what usually hurts a person's feeling, that is a trick trap corner in which to view the problem, for which there's no solution. It's just a pain. But if you look at it like, if you're in a helicopter, you have to have the string straight, because if your instruments go out and you're above the trees, you don't know if you're straight or not. So what usually people do, if they don't know how the string, they crash and burn, then slowly peel themselves up or not. But in this way, when you realize that your birthright, doesn't matter what happened, your birthright is to be loving, the love that you're looking for. Your birthright is to emanate what you really feel without defense. And I don't mean something that's injured, because if it's injured, what you're going to express is, anger and some kind of injured communication. But when you realize that it was just that you crashed and burned, and yes, the person I trusted did this, or this happened, or I was disappointed, or whatever. There's a million things people get on. And you just go, wait. I must be lacking something within myself, and think that if I link up with that which I'm looking for, I'm going to have something here. And that's a tricky trap. What is needed is for the individual to really relish in loving themselves and learning what they like, what they don't like. If there's stuff in your DNA that you inherited, you can delete those files. You go, that must be an inherited cellular memory. And it is. And then there's the gifts, like in the Matrix. Grab this or grab that. You download it. And that's true. We just are crashing around like an avatar when she turns around and says to Sully, you're just like a baby and you don't know what you're doing and you're just crashing around or whatever, and she was just not connected. So it's like if a person can realize that when they're not connected and feeling loving, that they got the virus, and then you got to get out of it. And how you get out of it is it's like climbing a ladder. You start putting gratitude, like what are you grateful for? What do you have? Not what you don't have. And what that does energetically is it creates an emanation. Instead of you needing, you're emitting that which you are, that which you love, that which you give, for no reason, just other than that's your beacon. That's what people aren't taught. You're your own beacon, and you can afford to love the best of yourself and to be more of that, because all the products and food and movies and stuff and distractions pull the masses any place but centered. And I had to look at that and went, wow. So consequently, all my movies happen that way. I had that first movie, Earth Monitor, that was wonderful. I got 3 or 4 credits in the film. Lost Empire was a blast. I also associate produced that film, did my own stunts, again, designed wardrobe. I mean, that's unusual. They don't let you do anything in Hollywood. You have to have a union. You can't express yourself. And the most fun, I can't say which one was the most fun. They're all amazing in different ways and have their funny stories. But it was like what it afforded me is this boot camp, which allows me to know, no matter how scary it is, that I can do this mission, that I'm connected, and it's not for me. I mean, we're included, but it's if you can give something back, and you can do it through edutainment, and then feed the people with this incredible sound and images, it reconnects them to themselves. You don't have to do anything. They just want to show up and be relieved and not be scared shitless and, intimidated and programmed and whatever else happens, because I know what sound does. And that's another topic. But, so that was a great thing. I got 4 or 5 credits in that movie and they had to stop giving me credits. So I had a leash, it was like I could do this. Where in the SAG films and television, you can't pick up a walkie-talkie and give it back to the person that gave it to you. I actually got a slap on the wrist, when I did a movie called Hear No Evil. Yeah, it was about deaf, the cop that went deaf with an explosion. And so, I had the scene where I was walking across the street and they had the walkie-talkie in the grocery bag so they can give me directions when to look and so on, because they're doing a long-distance shot. And then after the scene was over, I'm a Leo Virgo, I'm very orderly. I returned the walkie-talkie. And the guy turns around and says to me, "What do you want, an attaboy?" And I didn't know what the hell an attaboy was. What's an attaboy? So I asked somebody else. And I mean, what a stupid guy. I mean, like I was going to take his job. Like, I want your job. So, and it was really funny when I realized I said, "What's an attaboy?" And they said, "Who said that?" And I just pointed to the guy. "Oh, what'd you do?" And he says, "Yeah, these people, you can't touch a matchstick." And I'm a producer, so I know the order of things, and I've worked on the independent stuff in between that, and we're just responsible, able, not lazy, pitch in. We're all in production. We have a camaraderie. But with these union guys, well, at least these union guys, it was like, "Don't you touch my walkie-talkie."
Wow.
Anyway. It all goes back to behavior and ego, and, anything that's less than loving is a virus. To the degree that a person is unloving and defensive. There was a lady, I don't follow her teachings, I know she's very good, but we all have languages that appeal to us. And one thing she said that I'll never forget, and she says, defense is the first act of war. And I had to take that in. I said, no. I wanted to resist. Defense is the first act of war. And I thought of my life choosing those parents and siblings who are little raptolasters sometimes, not close, separation, all the things that I wasn't, but I thought that I didn't look at people as being that they didn't have it. I looked at that I wasn't worthy of having something nice come from them. And then I realized anyone who would do that, who heart connected in this world would do or say anything that's harmful to another being, that's disconnected and acting out and doing stupid, crazy stuff. They're not present. They have the virus bad because they're getting attention, really bad attention sometimes. That's disconnection. And what we do is we get all in pain about a situation that's not working out, because in order for it to work out, everybody's connection would have to be connected. And then it would work. But if only one person is connected, but then if they're, wanting something from a person who's not connected, then there's something that they have to learn about that connection. You know what I'm saying? There's no victims, there's no shame, blame. It's all like, when it clears, guess what? They're all simulations. So when you understand things that repeat or things that keep on coming up, and you sort of get it, whatever the it is, then what happens is it disappears and you never see that scenario again. So, something else comes up. So it's I know I'm on a blue streak tonight. I'm sorry.
Hey, I love it. To just take off with it. Makes it great. But I do think I think she got a question.
I'm sorry?
I think Melinda.
Absolutely.
Hello, Raven. How
Far
are
away.
you?
Hi, sweetheart. Nice to talk to you.
My first question tonight is, you was a Hell's Angels wife. Could you talk a little bit about that and the lifestyle?
I would love to. That was a very, in many ways, I think I feel like a comic in all the lives that came my way that I had an opportunity to walk through for a period of time. That I think I was blessed, because I've heard some horror stories about the movies, about the film industry, about, borderline films of, the nudie cuties that I was involved with. And it's like each world, I was so blessed. I think, I don't know, I didn't come to, it wasn't horrible. They weren't bad people. I think if we're good people, no matter what life we choose, we find good people. And with my handsome little Joe, he was like a Fonzie. Not as goofy as Fonzie, but sort of a conservative Fonzie, okay? Like, I'm Fonzie, but I'm not letting you know I'm Fonzie, kind of a thing. And good looking, very clean, neat. He was a Virgo, so his house was always, very clean and orderly and good taste. And he was one of those guys where, you think of sometimes the Hell's Angels kind of burly and unclean or something, which is really a stereotype. It's not. They're pretty individual. But in my era, this is where the famous ones, Blind Bob and all this whole thing was going on. And I wasn't involved with anything in the North. I was fortunate to be in San Bernardino. Nice people, laid back, very nice. So there was no wife beating and all the crazy stuff that I'm sure goes on somewhere. But, just because you're part of a clan doesn't mean you have to subscribe to all the habits of other people, just like anything. And so I it was Give Me Shelter, I remember that, and Anza, when him and I would paint, it was a whole family thing, women and kids and dogs, even cats, and they had a house up in Anza, and it was a weekend to get together, and the town up there really enjoyed everyone because we were all family people, And I remember that it was my first time there, and with that group. And I remember that when you fall asleep, my partner, Damien, he would have a whole pocket full of these fluorescent markers. So he would do artwork all over them because that was the era of black lights and everything. And so by morning, everybody would be painted because they'd fall asleep. And then even the dogs had PD, like little rascals, and all in fluorescent. And the next morning, we had a reservation at the town diner to house all of us. And it was like a pre-reservation because there were so many. And you walk there. And so the whole town came out to see an entire group of women and children and pets walking down the street, totally painted. You couldn't wash this stuff off. And everyone was looking at each other, pointing and laughing, because it was a party night the night before. So, I'm sure they had beer and wine and stuff. So, but it was very family-like. The kids were in the next room and that kind of thing. So the Hells Angels for me was, I was also like kind of I hate to use the word counselor because that's so limited, but really interested in human behavior and how to bring things together, how to understand where if somebody's disconnected from their hearts and they're less than loving and believing in something that's taking their health and their life away just on a belief, and then living that belief, if that's the case, we don't have to do it. So I had my practice early in different groups, because I think the Hells Angels came first, and then came the record company, and then because I was teaching a drug rehab program in Chino and California Men's Colony and San Quentin, and it was kind of like this, like versions of sitting down with these, putting a real prejudiced man of color with a real prejudiced no color facing each other and teaching these drills. And make a long story short, what it afforded was for them and their peers. I had to handle it very carefully because all their minions were in the room as well, and I picked the two leaders. And I would show them by example how I could piss them off in a minute and then say, stop. I'd stop. I says, okay, you flunk, you flinched or you reacted. Well, even if they twitch, it shows that emotionally what somebody says to them, creating a resistance, which means you're believing or resisting believing a particle coming to you, which is then taking down your cells. You know what I'm saying? We're looking at it chemistry-wise, alchemy-wise. So that's why people get sick and pull in these diseases and waste away. It's an accumulation of not understanding how to clear this. Thus, ta-da, sonics, with the cape blowing in the wind, a bunch of us, flowing to the music. I thought I'd segue there. But so with the Hells Angels, like, I heard a lot of stories, and I know things. People are weird, and they don't have to be Hells Angels to be weird. There's a lot of weirdies. But the thing that wasn't weird, they didn't tolerate that as members. There was no heroin addicts. If people was dishonest and they did things that were not nomadically tribe-like, they had an ethic between them. They took care of each other. Nobody would starve or, need something if their club dues would pay for a surgery or something. So it was the first real camaraderie, actually, because I'm not talking down on my family. I recognized that it was just an opportunity and a window for me to see things aside from thinking it was my fault or that I wasn't good enough, and realized when I got older that they write 9,000 books on the subject. It's like everybody's trying to figure out what is going on here. So I'm one of those crazy kids trying to put it so we can see it. So the Hells Angels, do you have any particular questions? Like something that you might be interested in knowing?
Well, Well, back in the day, I mean, they had such a bad reputation compared to what they are now.
Well, no. Tonight, I think they have a worse reputation now than they did when I was going. Do you know how they began? Oh, yes. Do you know who they are? Do you know how they began?
No.
Okay. I didn't either until, of course, I knew some, and then I learned the history. But briefly, they were a special, like, have the Green Berets, and they have, those little special forces that are specially trained. Well, the Hells Angels were a group of men that were daring, that had skills out of the ordinary, that could help in times of war and, military intelligence or missions that could be executed by people with a lot of guts. And they were very patriotic. The swastika, people misunderstood for the German thing. But really, if you look at the Hopi sign, there's a whole philosophy you can Google on the Hopi sign that's the base of the form that they took to make the sign of the Nazi sign. But I'm trying to think, how can I make this succinct? So what they did is they did special missions, commended for it, and then when they got out, they decided they needed to stay together, like you would just when you service or something like that. And so they started with a car club. And so they would meet, but a lot of the guys didn't have fancy cars or, had families then, or it was kind of expensive taking like the antique cars that some of them had specialized in before and drive them to, whatever state they decided they were going to make as a meeting point. And so they graduated to motorcycles. Now, they were steel workers and had these motorcycles, and they were veterans. And what started the brawl thing is that they would bring their wives or their girlfriends on motorcycles, and in that era, if a girl spread her legs to sit in a motorcycle, she was indecent. And so therefore, if you were on the back of a motorcycle with a motorcycle guy, that you were automatically, a hooker or cheap. I mean, it was just completely a projection. And here these were family people, and ex-military, and, special forces. So what would happen on a Friday night, in a steel town like Fontana, California, where they formulated, it was like the street where all these bars were, and they would go from one to the other, and somebody would get drunk and make a remark about their wife or their girlfriend. And they, at times it was appropriate they just leave because they just didn't want to be bothered. And other times, it was provoked. So they had to take action because, they lived in the neighborhood. And then the brawl started, And so then they became famous, like, don't mess with them unless you're stupid. So that people would just, their military stuff kicked in. So that's how they started. And it's like there was an error where they got the bad reputation, but it was mainly ass-kicking on Friday night or Saturday night, and it's not atypical. It's not really a Hells Angel thing. And they never ganged up on people because they always had the gang to make sure that the other guy didn't take them down. But, it wasn't like that kind of – they had probably the most integrity, at least generally speaking. This is always the exception, of people that had mores. They understood, family, and some charters more than others, but they still all had the basic, and some were really close. And Purdue at the time that I was around, I was really lucky. There were some hairy moments. I have some stories, but not to me, from my partner or anything. We were fine, and even so. Anyway, so it's different now. It's I don't need to talk about it. The only one I like remembering is the one I experienced because that I know. And so, there's many stories, but we only have certain amount of time, we can always revisit these things if it's of interest to anybody. But did I answer the question about the Hells Angels, or was this something else?
Oh yeah, it's fascinating. I mean,
I was treated very well. I was treated very well. No one ever called me a V word or told me to go do something or. No, I chose a nice partner, and he was very well respected. I was very well respected. You know, I had my boy, and my little boy, and you know, it wasn't extraordinary in the sense I didn't see terrible things. You know, bad. There's always bad behavior, and if somebody got, you know, into something they shouldn't have, they get their patch removed. You know, if they break the ethics, and then what they have to do is they have to completely cover the tattoos with any of the names, and they have to show that, or else somebody will, and whoever tattoos in the club will do it for them, and they black it out, and it's not very pretty. You know, you understand the mores of the group. You know, and I'm not saying everybody was like buttersweet and they all were, you know, perfect. I'm just saying that was the majority of the group, just like any of our groups. And then you have somebody that tweaks off the side and does something ridiculous, you know. It's like that same ratio, I would think.
You're saying that each group has an asshole in them.
Each group has what?
An asshole in them.
Well, absolutely, because people are people. It just depends on what story you buy. You know, like you have your story and what you live, and I have my story and what I live, and you know, and that's intriguing to me that we all have these stories. But the common denominator works for everybody, and that's why I think I've had all these lives this lifetime, through them significantly, the ones that I have, and so that I can learn what is the common denominator, what works for all of us. You know, what is real for all of us. You can't just like help this group of people. You know, it has to be humanity. You know, we're all in this together, and you can't be prejudiced because we chose a different story. You just got to get out of the road if the tank is coming. You know, it's like we get. Yeah, that's it. Resistance is not good. Navigating's okay.
Yeah, I always have a problem with resistance. Because I'm too nice of a guy. In my group, I have to deal with a couple, as I said, assholes in the group, and you know, everybody expects me to lay the hammer down, but you know, it takes a lot for me to get there because I feel like I try to give chances. I'm one of these people. I see the good in everybody until you put me to the point or take me to the area that I don't see it no more. Then I'm like, okay, you got to go.
Well, I don't know how old you are, but I went through that, and I was losing body parts fast. And then I realized that if I upheld if I upheld what you know, there's a saying. It really woke me up. I didn't understand this at first, but then I had to look at it, and it says, "Show me who you love, and I'll show you what you allow." You know.
That's yeah.
Exactly, because we do, even though the most terrible things in the world could be happening all around us and everything, and everyone's pointing and doing and throwing rocks, we still get a choice. Yeah. We could just go, okay, this can't be real. It's kind of insane. So what am I going to do? If everyone's screaming, who's going to row the boat? So I've got to like come to the table and say, I see the contrast in this, that this is the contrast all around me. So it must be a fear I have maybe, but it's not me. So, drowning in the projections, you breathe yourself into a higher frequency. This is with this technique that I found, where I was almost dead a few times this lifetime, but each time it was like life bringing me to Uncle on my knees so that I would see something that was in front of my face and didn't know how to look at it. And so it would take these near-death experiences to go, okay, I get it. And I would, you know, resuscitate and realize, wow, and that it's not, and it's so up to us that it borders the line of narcissistic, but in the healthiest way, not in the way that takes the codependents down on themselves. Nobody wins when there's a what do you call that, parasitic relationship. You know, it appears that there's some kind of a compromise or some kind of a payoff, but really, when we're flourishing, we dare to support each other and ourselves and to just like ease and grace. And it sounds like, how can you do that if there's a train wreck in the middle of the road? It's an illusion. It's an illusion. And if any image, just like you have those 3D glasses on, those virtual glasses, it's as real as it can get. And that's exactly, this is the solid physical universe, which isn't really solid, projected hologram simulation that we are in. Like right now, we're sharing a simulation. And we started that when we had the first dialogue. So it was kind of, it was kind of like bookmarking. And then now we and everyone out there that is listening or will listen to this is part of the simulation and is part of this information. It's sort of the bones, like if you're looking at a problem, instead of shame, blame, and regret, you just go, what is the foundation of this? How does this look? And that's kind of how I look at stuff. And I went, oh, these what are they? Quantum physics, holographic laws. I don't know what they're called. I forget. But they're new foundational bases in which to, instead of diagram a sentence, sort of like diagram like what do we have repeating in our life, and what tones does it bring up? How does it make us feel? And then you change the freaking program by giving it different stimulus, not by denying, but by actually changing the channel, or just like with a screaming 2-year-old is still stuck in the scenario because it just comes up. It's just like comes up as a file that's re-stimulated, so that you take the child and you show them something else. You give them a different object. You interest them in something else because they're going to stay on that circuit otherwise. And we're the same. It's the craziest thing. I couldn't believe it. One of the chapters in my book is called The Anatomy of a Circuit. And I thought, well, I started with Starbucks. I thought, well, okay, now that's easy because I don't really ever have to have Starbucks. But I have this hankering every once in a while to have this grande breve, no foam latte. And I used to have whipped cream, one raw. That was like, I don't know, just one of those things. So because I'm vegan, it's another story. And so for me to do that, just like, And so I said, I'll use that. Okay. And so I would write down on my phone myself, I'd take a note of when I would drive through, and even before I had a premeditated thought to drive through in the Sedona drive-through, and then I would note, what time was it? Did I take care of myself? Did I feed myself energetic stuff? I know all about this, what to do, and note how I was feeling. And so I would do this, and then I had a group that was doing it. I said, okay, let's just do this as an exercise. And it's unbelievable how many circuits we each have that we think is us, like getting up in the morning, what side of the bed do we get up? Do we brush our teeth? What do we do? What's the first things we do? Do we check our phone? Do we keep it next to us so we're frying in the middle of the night, turned on? I mean, to assess, like, energetically, it's not a judgment, but it's like, okay, we want the best in life. We want everything to work out for us. We want to have a roof over our heads. We want to have good food in our bellies. We want to have nice friends. We want to have a lover, to be ideal. The basics everybody wants. How they want them, of course, varies. And so if that's what we're scripting, okay, we'll call that the script, then we have to invest in that script, like filling in the characters, which means in order to be well and have a healthy body, we have to put in organics, non-GMO, quit, eating things that are not alive and flourishing, because I won't go into it. That's another whole story. But if you just look at it, beyond the ethics of it, you just look at what are we feeding this particular biological computer that it would really need to function optimally so that we're receiving the best of information for whatever it is we're supposed to do. We're all supposed to do different stuff. No one's on the, doing the same life. But we all should be doing the best and the most and the funnest things ever, and finding wonderful, fun friends that, support you and see you and say, yes, I see that, and encourage to throw off all the negative program that we inherit in ourselves. And we sometimes think it's us. We think we're bad people for having like stinky habits sometimes that we go, where the hell do we get that from? Oh, maybe they saw Uncle Joe do it or Aunt Harriet, whatever. You know, they're downloads that we have, and then we experience them, and we decide whether we keep them or not. It doesn't make us who we are, you know, fortunately. I don't know if I'm making sense. Makes sense to me.
That makes sense to me.
I'm sorry?
I said, makes sense to me.
Oh, okay. Sometimes we get a little bit of a delay.
Well, that's all right.
And, okay, that's all right. But, yeah,
That's how I deal with things.
Say what?
I said that's how I deal with things. I'm just like, it's all right. We'll figure it out. We'll get through it.
Exactly. But if we, you know, you're like you. This whole dialogue came after you being a really nice guy who, you know, expects the best of people and sometimes gets disappointed and has to tell them to go. So I didn't lose my place. It just I had a lot to say about that because you have to decide. That was the last place you left off, and so how you can save yourself, not being victimized by expecting blood out of a rock, and that's not a put down.
Right.
You know, it's like you wouldn't give the baby to the pedophile, and you wouldn't give the match to the pyromaniac. It's as simple as that. But sometimes our need is greater than our observation of who's actually in front of us. You know, and they can't hold the candle, so they drop the bucket, and then we're all bent out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that was an important one for me to learn because I was always thinking, yay, let's all do this. We're going to do this. We're going to have so much fun, and we're going to make a difference on the planet because we're going to be in the frequency that we're, you know. And so, and then people would hit their what they needed to look at next. But if you're on a bicycle chain and you reach one little link and the link kind of chokes up, you know, the whole thing stops.
Yeah.
So, so that's when it comes to, well, what can I do about it then? And sometimes being right or looking it up in the dictionary isn't the answer because if a person's disconnected from the truth, they can't reason. They're not looking at it the same way that you might be looking at it. They're because they wouldn't be reacting that way or doing less than what was agreed upon or expected. You know, so right away, that's what I mean by you can't expect blood from a rock. You have to go, oh, okay, and then regroup and realize that sometimes we project the best in people, but they don't think as much of themselves as you think of them, and this is true in many cases. And so therefore they do something that's irreversible in many cases to where you just, you know, that's it, because they take themselves out of the game by doing something that's unmistakably inappropriate in whatever way that gets under somebody's fingernail. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. Makes lots of sense.
Well, that's the way I looked at it, you know, because life afforded me so many different opportunities from so many, and it was like, you know, you go through that corridor where people have bats and sticks and you have to run really fast and they get to whack you as you go. I had that kind of a life most of the time in one form or another, but not as a victim. It's just that I was, because of the nature of now, which I know is a mission that I want to do before I leave this plane, you know, just to give back in such a delicious way that it will remind people of who they really are inside without even words. I mean, the words are there, but, you know, it's through edutainment and sound and invoking that deep within the heart, you know, based on the 432 hertz frequency that actually bypasses the mind and goes straight frequency-wise to the heart and opens up the dormant cells that are really dormant. Because if they weren't dormant, this world wouldn't be in so much chaos right now. But just like the wall, the chaos has to tumble everything down before anything new is formed. So that's what's going on, I think, planetarily, irregardless of the issue and who's running the army. You know, it's all dysfunctional, crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the wave is coming. There are
Oh, yeah.
countless individuals by having good thoughts. If a person's not technical or scientific or holographic or whatever, all they have to do is hold that space, even if in their religion they believe wholeheartedly, to where their smile comes out like Mother Teresa when they go into that space. That's that space, no matter how you get there. I just happen to have a way that's fun and delicious that everyone can do in a wave around the planet in a 3-day concert in all languages with certain specific sounds and images, with the mission opening the hearts of humanity, and everyone gets to play. Isn't that nice?
Oh, that is nice.
That's real nice. Anyway, that's my current mission and project. I have Sequoia Records is on board. That's our record company, Dave and Steve Gordon. It's not heavy metal, but they've been around for a long time. I've known those fellows. When I was entertaining in Canada, they would make my music tapes, and here they were holding space and creating music for healing based on abuse. And it's a long story, but I'm sure they'll tell it in their tales.
I'm going to have you back on the show 3 or 4 times. I mean, your life is so fascinating. I mean, I'm sitting here having to mark out questions. I'm looking at the clock going, damn, I can't ask that. Damn, she's already touched that one.
Well, that's good. You put out see how energy works. You put out the intention, and then I receive it on an energetic level, because that's my ballpark of exploration. And then I just, you can tell I don't have time to think. It just comes out. Right.
I think it's great. Like I said, it's very few guests that I've had on that they just flow, and I'm just sitting here going, well, that's the end of the show. That 2 hours went real quick. Did you have a question? Yeah, where can people get a contact of you? The end of the show.
Well, I have a question.
Uh-oh.
Sure, absolutely. Go right ahead.
But before I ask the question, you and I have something in common, actually. The name Raven. Rodney actually gave me my nickname. Plus, I'm a Libra, and that's my spirit animal. But my question is, how did you get the name Raven?
Well, my grandmother. I have relatives, and I never got to my grandfather's side, which is William Knox Martin. He was a pioneer aviator. He was pilot number 223, of which 3 got off the ground, and the first 2 were the Wright brothers. And he invented the pontoon plane, made the first airmail drop over, was it Barranquilla, or he did an airmail drop at Pancho Villa, I should say, first airmail drop. And anyway, I kidnapped my grandmother from South America and brought her to America. Had an ocelot and book of poems that he wrote, and open hatch plane, the only plane to land, the only plane in the skies of South America. It was so cool. He was really amazing. Anyway, so why did I tell you that? I lost myself that time. You asked.
Because of your name, Raven?
Oh, Raven. So then my grandmother had named me Raven because she said that I had psychic abilities, and I was a baby. I didn't know what a psychic ability was. We all have psychic ability, but some of us look into it more, that kind of thing. So that's what happened. And then there was a Delacroix in my family lineage because there were popes and all kinds of really strange, archetypal figures, of which I am none of and all of, but in a free form, not in a dogmatic anything. Because it has to fit all of us. There's no separation. There's no outside. There's no inferior beings. There's only this inferior disconnection, which makes a being do inferior things and get lost, or programmed badly. But, so that's how I got the name Raven. And then I named my son Matu Delacroix, life brother of the cross, sort of thing. And then I changed my name to Raven de Lumiere for many years until I moved to Arizona. They wouldn't let me have it. It was some weird thing. I said, what do you mean you won't let me have it? This is my passport. And so I had to go back to Delacroix. I took a break, and I became of the light instead of the cross.
Wow.
So that was that answer, and then there was something else. What is the thing we have in common? Oh, the name Raven.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
Rodney actually gave me my name. Why did you? My hair?
Well, yeah, your hair, your just everything about you just said Raven. See, I give people my group nicknames, and just things they do or their look or things they say helps me. I don't know. I just come off of nicknames like not like Trump's nicknames, you know. Mine are cool.
No. You probably get it from your spirit guides on the Native American side of things, because that's what they would do. They would see. No.
Now, what was I had when I was driving truck, I stopped there in Arizona at one of the Navajo reservation, and I went into a store to buy some some snacks, and there was a elderly Native American sitting out there, and he grabbed me by the hand. And he told me my animal spirit guide was a white grizzly, and I'm like, I've never heard of a white grizzly. And his grandson came out, and he said, "Oh, don't pay no mind. He's just an old man." And I said, "No." I said, "I'm part Cherokee, so I respect all Native Americans. I don't have I'm blood too, people."
Yeah, me too. I'm Cherokee as well.
And it really surprised me that he even said that. I've never had no one do that, or I haven't had anyone do that since. But ever since then, I don't know. I just had to just give people nicknames. I don't know why.
That's good. Well, you see something in them, and you're probably a namer.
Mm-hmm.
But you definitely got
lives as a namer.
Well,
definitely what?
I said he definitely got me on point because, like I said, I'm a Libra, so that's my spirit animal. I'm also pagan. I'm pagan, and my goddess is Nox, and her animal is Raven.
Well, it's Raven medicine. Raven medicine is seeing the light in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things, and finding their way in the dark, not being of the dark, but finding their way in the dark. And it's and the penchant for sparkling things having to do with spirit, not just materialistic sparkle, but the sparkle of the soul, the sparkle of goodness, the sparkle of something delicious or wonderful. It'll get your attention, and that's what the attraction to sparkle is on a dimensional level, on a spiritual level.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I know you said you've had multi-dimensional experience. What does that mean, and what was your experiences like?
Well, they started as a young girl. I mean, little, like 5, 6, 5, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that kind of a thing. And I would have these nightmares, or I would be held down. And here I slept in a room with a whole bunch of other kids. I was the oldest of 8 of them eventually when they all came about. And it was like I couldn't tell. I used to think it was my mother. I had nightmares about my mother coming through the door, and I was like pinned down to the floor, and she would be so giant. She would come in the door, and she would be angry. And I never knew what that was. Later on, I think it was something else that I didn't think of at the time. It's another story. But the ET part, so that was where I would have these experiences of the doctors examining me. And then I would also go exterior. When we were real little, we lived in New York, of course, across the street from Van Cortlandt Park, and on the 6th floor walk-up. And so my mother caught me several times walking out the kitchen window, which I would have dropped 6 stories down, but I don't think I would have dropped. I think I was taken. I go to the window, and then they just take you into the ship. But I never remember a ship, but I do remember exterior flying over Van Cortlandt Park and going over to the ice skating part, which I never knew about that place until some years later when I was old enough to go to the ice skating pond. And then I remembered that. It linked it together. I went, very interesting. And then, so there wasn't a lot of memory on that. Then, at the age of 10, there was some more experiences that everything was vague, and I wasn't connected to information. I didn't really know what was going on. So, you know, I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. So, you know, I was the oldest of the kids, you know, and I was experiencing this. So, you know, then when later in my life, I remember when I was 16, I was working in this health food store downtown, and I was always working as a babysitter before I was old enough to have a job, and then always was working. And that's how I had so many different professions, too. So I was working in this health food store, and then this guy comes running in, and he was terrified and paranoid. But he didn't look like a nutbag. He just looked terrified and stuff. So I said, "Are you all right?" And he goes, "I'm going to tell you this, and I have to leave." So I didn't meet a lot of weirdos yet, so I didn't know there could be a lot of weirdos. But this was okay, strange guy. And he shows me his fingerprints. He says, "I'm Venusian. I don't have fingerprints," you know, and I'm running because, you know, this is before all these Netflix specials they have on the travelers and people coming in and out of dimensions. And so he was running from something that wasn't a human, you know, wasn't a human thing. It was a ET thing. And then he stopped to tell me this experience. So that was another one. And then there were more and more. And then finally, I mean, seeing paranormal things, lights in the middle of roads. And, you know, I didn't know what to think of them. We didn't have the internet. You know, I didn't have any stimulus as to figure it out. Then it was like, I forget what year it was, where I started reading some of the books, you know, the first books on contact and stuff like that. And then very early on, I was a part of MUFON, and but the MUFON thing and my connection with, you know, MUFON Los Angeles and contact, I held support groups at my house. Kim Carlsberg was with us at that time in LA, and Darylenka Bashar, I don't know if you're familiar with his channelings or him as a person. I've known him for 40-some years or something like that. And so I find that all my experiences are linking together people who are making a difference, who do have valid information, who are trying to help people. And when you put all these people and this music and this arrangement together, just like properly in its place, like in an academy, then what happens is you can make that wave. You can make that sonic wave. You can do this through this medium. So how that relates to the ET experiences. Then there was a period, very active period, because I remember stuff in 1947, which is when I was part of this Roswell thing, and that hasn't come clear as to what my role or what it is. It's just connected. And I even did a documentary called The Elastic Zenith that won EBE Award for Best Experimental Documentary. And I forget what year that was, 2007, 2008, 2009, something like that, I forget, at the Congress, UFO Congress. And and Bashar, if you don't know his work, always talks about, he's one of the leading channels for Darylenka. He's actually cousin to Paul Anka, who I met when I was in the music business, Far Out Productions. So everything kind of ties together, you know, after looking back all these years. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. I think we're all coming to the table with our best and choosing pods that indicate to each of us as to what, you know, we want to contribute to. So there was a period where I saw Sedona before I didn't know it was Sedona, and I was leading this group of people who were in a twilight. They were sort of like just a twilight, and they were following my voice, and I had a very calm voice, and I was saying, everything will be all right, just walk this way. And we were out on trails that are in back down the street from my house that I discovered after I moved here. And then the guy who owns the house that I'm in is Paul Davids, who did the TV movie Roswell and couple of other movies, Einstein, something or another. And it's just so connected, really. And then, there was a period of time where they were taking seeds from me. There was a period of time where I was in this terrarium-like place where I was hugging all these little hybrids. They were these delicate beings, and I was seeing the laboratories where they would keep they would always take a fetus, like I think at 3 months, and that's why they look like grays, because that's what the fetus looks like at 3 months. It's interesting. And so there's been experiences where, which is another whole story, where I was being, they were like, I didn't understand the holographic universe and simulations then, but if there was ever a way to explain a simulation, it was definitely going on in a way that was so intense, to where I'd be in this scenario, and then I would go from scenario to scenario, which is a story, but we probably don't have time for me to say it. But that was interesting. And I found out I was being trained because when fear would come up in the scenario, so it reminded me of the movie Insurgent, or 2 movies, Insurgent and Divergent. And in one of them, she's going into a simulation. She knows she's going in a simulation, but when she's in the simulation, she doesn't know she's in the simulation. She's in the simulation, and she's experiencing it without the outside recognition of what the duality of her consciousness. So she's, the house is on fire and her mother's on the roof, and she's one of those superhero type girls in a sense. So, it's like, how am I going to save my mother? And her heart's beating because she's sitting in a chair. Virtual reality is what she's experienced as real, which is what we are experiencing as real right now. And it's virtual reality in actuality, really. So, and then the gift in me telling you this is the aha moment I got when I saw that scene. Couldn't tell you about the rest of the movie. And she goes, "It isn't real." And she absolutely knew it wasn't real, and the whole scenario stopped. Her heartbeat went back to normal. They unplugged her. That is real. As soon as things hype you up, whether it's the phone ringing or all the different scenarios that stress people out, whatever it is, if it's stressing you out, you're not in the right frequency. You have to navigate yourself to the calm place, knowing that it's holographic simulation and that there's a remedy, always. May not be the one you think it is, but there is a remedy. And if you just take a moment and breathe into yourself, everything stops. It's a miracle. It really is. Anyway, blah, blah, blah.
I love how you finish things, blah, blah, blah. Sounds a lot like me when I'm trying to explain something. You know what I mean, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I could go on and explain it, but each thing is its own story. I was trying to blah, blah, blah myself into, okay, whatever, all on and on. In other words, on and on.
I'd love to hang out with you for like a weekend, or probably week or two, because just, wow, to hear your stories would be amazing, just to sit back and listen to them all.
Yeah, I have to write the book Rantings of a Mad Woman. That's, because that's how I would do it. I couldn't write, millions of stories. I just have to go from life to life and tell the introduction, some experiences and what I got out of it, and then how the next simulation occurred. Boy, if I'd, that saying is really true. If I'd only known then what I know now.
Yeah.
Boy, it changes the playing game, the game field, to where you can be far more efficient. I did pretty good, though, blind. I'm not dead yet.
I think you've done great. I think you've had
still going.
Career and still kicking it and giving it hell. I love that.
Still dance with fire barefoot. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I had to trade my feathers for fire. What? Hot feet? No. Yeah. No, and the feet's not hot. You got fire fans. I'm not a circus act. I don't do spinning and all that other stuff. There's some people are great at it. But for me, I'm just doing the simple old fan dance with the elements, but with fire instead of feathers. I remember the first time I had to remember not to use the fire fan like a feather, because I would singe my entire self. Like you have a certain you know what I mean, Raven, right? You just go with the feathers, and if you did that with the fire, whoops,
it's gone.
it would be a whoops.
Well, I don't dance. I'm the one sitting over there beating on a drum.
Well, that's good, but that's a dance. I mean, did you ever see Lorena McKennett's drummer, the modified orchestral drum? Oh my God, he's one with the drum. I love that. He has a modified orchestral drum, and his whole body goes into, and the sound is like the beat of the earth. It's awesome.
That's right. Well, I think Melinda's got another question.
Sure.
In your opinion, what does the Native Americans think the UFOs are?
What is the Native American what?
What do they think that the UFOs actually are?
Well, I think the Native Americans that are not just passing along dogmatic information like all the religions do, where it becomes it's very fixed. I think in the earlier text, there's, what was this guy's name? It's called, well, I'll remember it. Starwalker? I'll have to think of it. There's a lore of the people that are really connected to the earth and the beings in the, I know this is another whole can of worms, but I've just recently in the last year done a lot of research as to whether, and I have no investment on which way it needs to be, because I really don't care. I would like the truth, and there's so much BS going on that, everything we've been taught is kind of sideways. So, is the earth, I don't think it's flat. I think the plane that we live on is flat. We could do a whole show on that one. But I would just give homework and people could just find out for themselves. That's what I did. I have a whole list in my YouTube channel that people can access, archived stuff. But I haven't cleaned it out yet. If I see something, I'll say, okay, I'll bookmark. I'll put it in the library, and then I'll go when I have time and listen to that one. And so it needs to be rooted out. But I got some really good ones. And it's common sense. It's not conspiracy. I mean, it has all the elements in it, but the focus is sheer, cartology. Am I saying it that right? It's mapping out, the planet, curvature, gravity versus density. We're talking without religions, because that's in there, and without government and Luciferian things and the Vatican, and I know about all that stuff. But if you look at the bottom line, away from why all those people are involved the way they are, however they're involved, it boils down to that the common sense proof experiments, not having to do with any of those theories, is that there is no curvature. And the way they do the planes, they're purposely rerouted. And if you look, and Polaris is stable. We're hurling through space, right? Thousands of miles an hour, and then hurling around something that's hurling around something. Vomit, it's impossible. Then why, if we spill water in front of us, doesn't it end up just a little bit further to the left or right? I mean, I can go on. But there's videos that taught me this, so anyone can access it and think for themselves. But it was those kind of things, just real, simple, and shown with real men and people and women, out there in boats and planes and trains and stuff, and reports from pilots and stuff. So the answer to the Native American is some of them were connected to the beings from the realm. Now I think it's a realm. There's below Earth. Now you only can go 8 miles. No one on the whole planet has been able to drill or dig past 8 miles. Nothing can get. Now that's kind of curious. Also, if you look at the real map of 500 years ago, who changed it but a Jesuit Illuminati priest who later was a part of the order, Copernicus, who decided that it was easier on the spherical model, and the church rolled right over with it. And what it did is it made the closeness and the specialness of a holographic simulation that we and everyone who experiences it, however many times or however we're doing it, are somehow in the league to be able to experience it no matter what life we picked. And it makes sense that when I first saw the planetarium when I was a kid, it had a pendulum in the middle, like Earth, and everything went around it. And that made sense. And the Antarctica is all around, and nobody can go there, only designated areas. And there's a whole can't go there thing. And then you look on TV, and Admiral Byrd, way back before they censored people, was saying there's a whole thing bigger than the United States, bigger than certain continents, beyond the 300 feet wall of ice that continues to ascend all the way around, which contains the waters. This is why we can't melt the pole. So, and you can, and on and on. I don't want to. I can go on for. It took me years. Okay, so there's a lot of info, and it makes it fun. You go, okay, all right. So that leads to with the Indians. They knew about the realm. If you look at an Egyptian depiction of Earth, there's a dome of stars, and it's huge. I mean, what a huge creation. I mean, it's big. It's big. It is big. And then the Milky Way is called the Peshmerten in Sumerian, which means star lane. And when the floods came, it came through the crack there, which obviously has since been repaired. But anyway, I think it's fascinating. It sounds, when you look at the evidence, not stupid videos, but there's some really good ones. Really, NASA admitting we haven't been past the Van Allen belt, and and then there's another piece of information that somehow they were visited. They, meaning NASA, the government, and told by ET, you're not ready yet. When you get invited, you'll know it. Until then, off. And then Kubrick filmed the moon landing. It wasn't even real. Can't believe this. The tin foil and the curtain rods and the masking tape that's clearly visible in that model. Clearly. Anyway, there's other clues. There's a 2-hour documentary about Kubrick and the filming and The Shining and the clues in the other films he did and how he was paid off and how Neil Armstrong was the one who made him have a conscience later in his life. And then when he revealed what really happened, he mysteriously died like a bunch of them do. Blah, blah, blah. But it's not about the conspiracy. What it is, it's like, wow. So the Indians, the Palladians, knew about certain species of ET that was beneath the earth. They knew about the abductions because their women would be either taken or impregnated and then taken. They take them in 3 months. And what caused that, this is interesting, piece of data that I downloaded from JFK when I was just a kid and didn't know what the heck didn't know what it was. It didn't open up, the file didn't open up until the time in my life when I knew what it would mean. And what I was downloaded is that the good old boys on this planet, our good old boys in this United States, decided to take out Japan, because Japan, their symbol is the circle with the dot in it, and that indicates asteroids, because they were geniuses way before these scenarios happened in our recorded history. They would travel in these asteroids that would be like a base that would orbit, and it would take a long time to get to your destination, but that was the plan, like living in, and you'll finally 10 years get here. But the ships, could, I guess, come in and out of there, and had that whole thing going. But everything is contained within. It's not out there. But here has so much space and dimensionality. It's like, how many times, like, if you're sometimes in a higher vibration, you can see things, and when you're dense and real tired and socked into your body, you can't see anything. It's just like that. It's all going on, but there's so much space that we have these quadrants. So the Native Americans were aware, and they had their legends of what they can think about it, And just like people now believing in dogmatic religion as opposed to people who are more historians in the fact that they, research a lot of material before they start concluding, what may be something to look at and unfolding the truth about what the heck is going on around here, So anyway, That's a short answer to a long question.
Well, have you ever had any experiences, with cryptoids like Bigfoot or anything like that?
Well, I have with, funny you should ask, when I came to Sedona years ago, with my not yet husband of the time, real sweet man, Michael Zaiton, and we decided to drive to Sedona and do a camping trip, and the Bluefine group, we were discussing at that time the female Bigfoot who wanted to, who was reported in the area of where the government took over the ranch, where there were sightings and so on and so forth going on, and so we were going to camp, and we didn't know Sedona from a hole in the wall at the time. I had been there, made a documentary some years before, but it wasn't free to roam to explore Sedona, so we had just had a private session with my friend Bashar, who the channel, and we drove to Sedona, and then we see a market, Bashar's Market, like Bashar, so we took it as a fun synchronicity, and then we finished getting our camping supplies. We didn't know where we were going to go. We didn't pre-plan. We didn't do any of that stuff. We didn't know enough about Sedona to do that. So we come out of Bashar's, and a big, fat raven comes right at us, so as big as my cat, and then swoops up and goes out of sight. So I said, wow, that's amazing, symbol. Because in Sedona, well, anywhere, the animals talk to you. It's an animal medicine. So that was interesting. And I know it was a raven because ravens and crows don't live in the same neighborhood, just like rats and mice. So we go across to get gas, and I'll be darned if that big, gigantic raven and his mate were perched right in front of us. And I said, Mike, why don't we just follow the ravens if we can? That would be kind of interesting, just as long as, just see what happens. It was daylight. We still had some time to find camping. And we did. And these ravens stayed with us, or we stayed with them, made sure that we saw them, and took us in the middle of Road 525, which leads to the Pulaski Indian ruins and the Hani Indian ruins. And, of course, they're only open in the mornings. You have to make reservations. We didn't know any of that then. But we were just going to follow the ravens. And the ravens, halfway down the middle of the road in this place, which we didn't know was in the backyard of the ranch that was having these experiences. We had no knowledge of that at this time. And then, so the raven goes off to the right, which I hadn't done. It pretty much stayed on the road that we could know that that's where we were supposed to go the whole time. And so Mike removed some of the stones so we can drive the truck in there. And we drove the truck. Thank God we had this little Ford Ranger. And drove into this place, and all of a sudden there was a little clearing where we could see the road and we could see the Pulaski Indian ruins in the distance, but no one can see us because we went back to the road after we set up the tent to check. I said, wow. And the ravens landed on this tree that was absolutely 25 years ripe of firewood that we could have for the week. Because, that's manzanita, that's sacred fire. It doesn't burn the same as any other wood. And so this was amazing. And so we didn't know that there was flash floods. It was November. We didn't know anything about that. And we were lucky because the way that the ravens found us this place, the land was such that the waters went around us. It was just a miracle. Everything was just set up. It was like a set. And then when I have a VH tape DVD that I haven't seen since it happened. And we recorded this, the whole entire Sedona sky was completely black and like a frying pan down low to where on the horizon, as far as we could see, where we were at was a good vantage point to do that, had this little tiny blood red crimson line that was just outlining the bottom of this frying pan, and then a sliver of light just for a bit before it went from dusk to dark, where you can see the horizon. I went, oh my God, this was, and you could feel the atmosphere. You could feel it was this thing in the air. So we set up camp, and he made a campfire, and he was really good with moving stones around and being respectful of the land. And we set up, just a wonderful site and all of that. And so in the night, so we're supposed to look for the Sasquatch because it was reported that the female Sasquatch, whatever the culmination of the news that people had or experiences or whatever. So we were going to see what was up. So I think because of who we were, in the sense of gentle people who respected the land, who was following the ravens and set up the camp and had the intention of just being awake, aware, and of service to like whatever we can document, whatever we're supposed to know. And that was kind of the right receiving point, being grateful and being happy and being, open to these experiences. And in the middle of the night, I have to tell you, there was so much going on. First I knew the sound is when something's going to happen. There's all the forests of coyotes, go off together, and they do this for like maybe, I don't know, a minute or two. It's a while, and then it ceases, just like the acacias, the katydids, but they do their massive song and rhythms, and they stop, and then they start up again. It was something like that. So to me, I had learned from prior experiences that was the opening of the portal. So we were just paying attention and being present as we could. And then later on, when the experience is over, just so I don't forget to say it happens again. Everything stops. And then there's this huge, on and on, yodeling through and so far, and then it stops, and the gate is closed. And so we recognize that one because I've had that experience before. And we filmed in the dark, but we saw things disappear and reappear. So that was kind of a validation of the different planes, being in one plane and then the other plane, being on the border, being able to, not do anything fancy, nothing miraculous happened, just sort of putting our feet in the water based on what was happening. And, what do we know? But it was profound because the next morning, we found, that things had been, we heard things, we didn't feel that we should come out. Nothing came to the door to ask us to come out. So they respected that we were, because they know, they can smell who we are. And so, so I felt that these beings, you could tell it wasn't hoofed beings, and we were able to see. I thought maybe it was a bear at first, but they don't go down. There's places that the bears live, and they don't live in that area because we did all that research. And so it was like that happened. And then the next day, at the end of the week, when we checked out, because each night we had something happen, but when we not checked out, I guess when we left the area, cleaned up the space, and left it no trail behind, and the ravens returned. Didn't see the ravens for the whole week. We saw ravens, but not those ravens. But when we checked out, those ravens were there, and that blew my mind. I said, we are definitely being spoken to. I wish I understood better, but I'll just remember it, and it'll make sense someday. And so then there was a report of these two Brazilian guys who mysteriously appeared in the area that we were in with like sulfur marks on their chest, and they didn't know how the hell they got there from Brazil.
Wow.
So I'm not sure that had anything to do with me being there, but I'm just saying that it does have, that area was active, and that's why the government threw the tenants out and said that they needed it for government property, that kind of thing. Very interesting. Anyway, those are some of the stories.
Well, like I said, we're getting down to about 10 minutes, and like I said, I'm gonna have you back on the show a good few more times because it's fascinating. Your life and your stories, but what are your plans for the rest of the year? You got any projects or anything that you're working on?
Well, the most important project is the undertone of what I've been communicating pretty much the whole night, looking back on what I've done and adding to it that which I am doing through several near-death experiences and through being a counselor and dealing with people, and then finding out that most people want to stick to their scenarios and people don't look outside their own box. And instead of getting me like you, teed off and saying, hey, I can't do this anymore, I started saying, wait a minute, this I'm fielding people here in Sedona. If they go to Airbnb and look for Raven's Cosmic Portal, I've been instructing people. I haven't been on Airbnb. I just started because I had my own practice. But right now I need all the time I need and the support I need to launch this project this year. And the project, in brief, if that's possible, it's called, the theme is occupyself.me/inquire within. So that's kind of the healthy narcissist thing I was saying. People want to know about themselves. They want to be good people. They want to get what they want in life. They want to sort themselves out without shame, blame, and guilt and all that stupid stuff. We're given a lot in life, and then we have to figure out what's us and what isn't. You get a choice, like college. You get to say, nah, delete that file. No, that's not me. I inherited that. It's not me. Or, yeah, I'll take this, or music, yeah, I'll click that in, like the Matrix, focus on that, whatever. So, and then make room by energetically setting your table, setting your tone. It's your life. No one's going to do it for you. If you let them, they'll project all kinds of crazy stuff on you. Then you feel bad. Don't let them do that. I almost died so many times thinking, boy, I must be really terrible. And then I realized people that are connected don't do stuff like that. They don't. Right. Good people don't make other people feel bad. They realize, gee, that person's disconnected. I'm going to hold space for them. You don't fix them. Don't fix them. But you hold space, and their soul recognizes it. It's a relief, even if they kick and scream. You're not there to fix them, but you are there to hold your own space and to emanate the best from yourself, even if they're not the best. It's kind of hard when you're sensitive. I'm a sensitive person. But when I realized that it was not a fault but a condition, it allowed so much forgiveness. But I get out of the traffic. I'm not double-clicking those icons. I'm learning that I'm recognizing by this study thing that I'm doing. If you hear some noise in the background, my gorgeous little Scotties are sitting there so patiently waiting for their food. So I home make I give them vegan, organic, non-GMO food because these animals are dying the same way humans are from the crap they're eating. So I make their dog food, and so they love it. I've never seen them be so excited about this food.
Oh,
because they're omnivores. Fine. They don't. Huh?
I said that's fine. I had a guest on a few weeks ago. He was cooking while we was having an interview.
Well, it'd be hard for me to chew because I'm already like a machine gun. So if I chew, even you won't be able to hear me. So, were we somewhere, or did I distract myself?
Oh no, I was just asking, about what your plans were for the rest of the year.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, this will bring us up to present time pretty quick with things in between. So my dream is called, and it's a university. It's going to start out virtual first. I'm building it, and it's called SonicAlchemy.Academy. And remember that card I sent you with the 4 sides to it? It's a tint card. I sent you images of it, and yes. One of them had So my logo is M cube, which in science means M to the 4th power, which means It's not Om, because Om goes straight across. And it's not Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, but it's And what it does, when you receive that, you take the divine breath like and there's a cycle. And when you click in, just like when you play the song right, when you click in and you're actually doing the right tone, everyone's got what I call their 432 hertz. It is a certain frequency, just like a note is do, re, mi. It's a certain frequency that when you hit it, it releases endorphins in your heart, which opens up dormant avenues of ascension whatever you believe ascension to be, upgrade, ascension, however you want to look at it. And it only can be opened by yourself. You can be inspired by a song can do it, but it's a self-activated, occupyself.me, inquire within. It's a self-application of a sound, and I have documentaries to back it up, let me tell you. There's one on YouTube that'll give you more questions, but it'll show you the importance of this, and that's called Sonic Geometry, Language of Frequency and Form. It's 33 minutes and 34 seconds, and you can catch it free on YouTube. And the first 20 minutes are very easy instructions, but it'll be jaw-dropping because they actually took the 432 out of music and changed the standard to the 440. And the 432 was the real standard. So that's another whole show. I could do a whole show on that one. But the documentary will give you an awareness and why music and sound is supposed to be the holy grail. And if they took out the sacred sound and put something else there, you'll get to a point in that documentary, I forget what minutes it is, I actually have it written down somewhere how many minutes in, that it talks about the table of nines. It's pretty much in the first third. And then you'll see that the 540, the 440, whatever it is, now I got myself confused, whatever it is, it's not in the table of nines. And it's the music standard of today. And it takes you out of your heart. They thought the excuse was with the churches is that it was too sensual. But yet the Sufis and certain other cultures kept it in the more eclectic music. And so I have been collecting artists for years that would absolutely adore to be on the stage together, and some of them have. They've co-produced and been together. And they may or may not know that people think the 432 hertz is tuning your guitar to 432 when it may make something abrasive less abrasive. It's not going to make crap music good. But it's the combination of these certain sounds that I've collected these artists, and that's why I'm so blessed to have Sequoia Records and Dave and Steve Gordon to take care of that whole aspect, because they're already set up and doing that thing for years. It's like, that's a gift. And so it's this composition that equates something that is a 432 that opens the heart frequency and changes your DNA when you facilitate it in a very simple manner, which I discovered by almost dying a few times. And then now, I teach people this, and there's going to be recordings and imagery and stuff, so it becomes easier to teach people in large groups. And I'm going to do so. What Sonic Alchemy is it's an academy with all the beings that have been holding up their treasures on the plate that are altruistic and that are all parts of the library of information, of the new information, or the culmination of the information we didn't look at the same way before. So that's an academy that people will have access to virtually. And there are courses in the occupyself.me, inquire within part of it. That's what we offered. Like, this is the how-to. This is the YouTubes. This is the films. These are the passages in these books, and these are the songs. Now, the cube, it looks like two hearts. One, like rounded, that's the ship, and then the other M is to a side, almost like the Ohm symbol, but not. And that's the cube is the production company, which is Harmonic, all capital letters with K. And so what Harmonic does, the production company, actually puts on sacred concerts live all over the planet and streamed live, and where the global population is aware that it's for them, and we'll all participate, even by doing. It's going to be part of it is interactive theater, so that like somebody like who Bobby McFerrin is.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, he's real popular. Each person that I invite has their minions, but when they learn the frequency and the breath and see that it registers on a neuro headset as you being a vortex, which pops you out of your simulation and your limitations, I can go on, but that's the simple part of it. And so, I'd have Jimmy McFerrin. I have so many people I've been collecting that I have a whole digital concert that I need help in editing together for an Indiegogo presentation, so that people can buy they'll pay the artist's way and their accommodations in Sedona. We'll launch the first live stream concert here, and the theme is opening the hearts of humanity. And it's not just any music. These are artists that have comprised, every time you hear a note It goes through your heart. It goes through your cells. And this is what I see the finished product. I have the links in the sense of it's the record company and the artists who would love to be together, and the venue in Sedona, and holding space here for 11 years, and it's just a wonderful privilege to be able to produce and create the cosmic global tribe. And when you just think of the alchemy of this, okay, this is not about concerts and records and all that. That's all ancillaries, just come because that's what happens. What we're doing here is alchemy. You're getting waves of people with the right advertising. Everyone knows it's coming up. It's 3 days concert around the clock, 24/7 of this type of frequency. It's like holding a tuning wave. And it goes in. If I explained it all to you, you'd see what I'm saying even more clearly. But I'll just do it briefly, if you can call this briefly. And so what happens is you get waves of people participating in a 432 frequency with the intention to open the hearts of humanity, and everyone doing what they can do. Everyone has different things. Sometimes just being there is the best. You don't have to be an artist or a dancer or a speaker or anything, And so everyone will have an equal investment as far as being part of the solution, soul-lution. And that is alchemy. Just like all the bad news is making people crazy and the storms make people crazy. Well, the good news and the good music and the good intentions and everybody on the same page and everybody contributing and feeling valuable and putting their foot in there and saying yes. Remember that movie, what was it, Network? I'm not going to take it anymore. It was an old movie, probably before your time almost.
Take this job. Are you talking about the song "Take This Job and Shove It"?
No, not that one. But it says the same thing. It's a movie. It's called Network, and it's a sleep network. Remember that movie? It's like 30 years ago. I forget. And it was controversial then.
I appreciate you thinking I'm young.
Well, you said you're 40? That's a baby.
No, 48.
Oh, that's nothing. You know how old I am, right?
You sound like you're 35.
Well, I sound like I'm 35, but the body is like going to be 71 in August. So, but
well, you're
I ain't
still
dead. I'm not dead yet.
Well, you're still
I just refuse. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Any more questions, peoples? Anything else that just for tonight that is unanswered that we should cover? Or
no, we're actually out of time. We're going, I said, we're going to have to have you back on because it's only a 2-hour show, and we're going to have to take you in segments because I'm serious. I've enjoyed it. It's been great, and I love talking to you and listening to your stories and your philosophies. It's amazing. But I think Melinda, one last question about
Yes. Do you have a way that people can go to get in touch with you, or to get a copy of your art, movies, or just to leave a comment?
Well, I've been so lackluster in making myself self-important, but now that this mission has to be launched, I have a friend of mine, Patty, in Canada, and she's helping me with the last rendition of the card, and to be able to, get the animated website going on so that people can interact and have the benefit. I'm going to give the most important thing away for free, and that's that connection, that I call it the Trinity toroidal breath. And when I'm going to post a picture of me 5 years ago where I look 103, and I'm not over-exaggerating either. You'll go, what? And then with this breath that saved my life, and then I came to understand it technically to where I understood, like, why would that happen, from going to death to life in under 30 minutes. When I finally looked in the mirror and said, I had pneumonia, I was dying. When you see this picture, it's quite frightening. And, and then all of a sudden, I had no choice. I was dying. So I took a selfie. I said, Lordy, And then applying this, I didn't know what to apply. I did what I knew, but since I had pneumonia, I couldn't breathe deep. I was going, I can't even breathe myself into state because that was my way. And then this near death and this pneumonia, gurgling, everything, not able to stand up straight. And I went, holy mackerel. When you see this picture, you'll see what I mean. It's like, you won't believe it. And so all of a sudden, because I couldn't breathe deep, I discovered on accident, I didn't know anything, I discovered the what I call the Trinity toroidal breath that opened. And then I found out later with heart math, everyone's got a little piece of the puzzle. Heart math has, talks about the heart having its own chakra, its own toroid, rather. What am I talking about? Their own toroid. Then there's the larger toroid. And there's an image. It's Alex Gray's, Maya, come eat your cookies. It's Alex Gray's spiritual energy system drawing, and you can see the actual energy field. And I somehow breathed myself onto that on accident in the way that opened my heart, which was failing. And so, and Greg Braden talks about this in the Isaiah effect, and he's a scientist who discovered energy through, a scientific point of view. And Nassim Haramein is, he discovered the connected universe. That's free on YouTube. That's mind-blowing. And then, Bruce Lipton is a cellular biologist who, come on, Maya, come get it. Come on, see this one. I know Indigo took yours. Here, this is yours. Don't you know the pink one is hers? There. So cute. And so it's like all these people are talking about being connected. And so we all have these different pieces. So putting everybody together in the sonicalchemy.academy and with virtual tours, and then going to the concert, virtual or live, and then participating in Opening the Hearts of Humanity. Alchemy will change. This simulation that we're all sharing, we will evolve consciously. I mean, it'll be like the best trip. Why people think they take drugs. This will be on the natch, connected, and generating your part in it actively in a synchronized time. And this is all mathematics. I'm saying the flowery adjectives, but this is all mathematics. And there's documentaries that would show the mathematics to be accurate, and I found a way to deliver it through edutainment. So that's what I'm doing with the rest of my days. I'm going to launch this puppy. I'm going to have these concerts, and I have enough experience to know what I need to know and what I don't know and what I need to get, and to produce this place, this whole, thing to where there'll be stations all over the planet, and it'll be a new platform for the new kids on the block, bringing the new stuff to connect us instead of disconnect us.
Well, it sounds like you're going to be a busy lady.
Yeah, that's true. I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah, that's something I say a lot. Well, Raven, like I said, it's been an honor speaking with you. We'll set up more dates to get you back on. But I thank you for sharing what you have shared with us tonight. And
I could share some links, like the Airbnb for those that are interested in training. If they want to go through me for training, they would go through ravenscosmicportal.com. That's what I'm doing here. I'm going to do the last one-to-one trainings before I go out into larger groups once I get all the filming done of the process and so on and so forth. And then if guests are just traveling and they just want to travel on by, I just opened for Airbnb starting the end of this month. I'll be taking bookings. And they just have to go to Raven's Cosmic Portal Experiential Retreat on Airbnb in Sedona, and they can, they take care of that stuff. Unless they're doing workshops, then I do it. If they're doing private workshop or group workshop, So I'm doing that last minute until I launch the first digital concert to show the peeps what they're investing in, and send the invitation to, through the music company to all the artists. It'd be great. Everyone can participate. It'd be so good. So, if people want to, it's Raven Delacroix on Facebook, but I have, it's a limited amount of people I can have friends with, but I'm going to be launching my sonicalchemy.academy Facebook page. I have a whole bunch of different ones for different movies I've done on Facebook, just as a scrapbook. I really, that's what I use it for, so I don't lose it. And so we'll be launching the information and some online practices with recording so they can hear what this sounds like, and they could try it out and see if it doesn't, with the information provided, they'll be able to say, wow, this is like a rocket ride, and I get to be the navigator. Nice.
Yeah.
No more turning. Yep. It's awesome. It's a feel good where you don't have to wait for something good to be feeling. You make it happen.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you for your generosity and your time. I'm probably, let me know when I can hear this. I'll probably laugh myself. It's like I was in such a silly mood today.
I'll send you a link time I upload this and paste it and put it on my YouTube channel, and plus I'll send you a link to Blog Talk where it'll be on both of them.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, like I said, I appreciate it. It's been an honor, and thank you for taking the time, and you have a good night.
Well, thank you for being really good listeners, because it takes both, to make it all happen.
Oh, I'm a good listener. That's one thing I've always been credited for. I have a lot of friends that come up to me and put their head on my shoulder, going, "I've got this," and I'm like, "All right, just talk to me about it."
Well, that's good, Papa.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, Raven, you have a good night, and
you too, honey.
I'll talk to you again soon.
Okie dokie then.
Okay, bye-bye. Well, that's it for us tonight. I want to again thank Raven for coming on the show, and yes, I can say de la Croix. Y'all didn't think I was going to, did you? And thank everyone who took the time to listen in. I'd like to give a big shout out to the Vibe Radio Network and to Ryan for putting up with us. Also to all the first responders and the men and women in the armed services. Thank you for your service and sacrifices you all make every day to keep us safe. Our guest for next Thursday night, April 26th, will be Aaron Oakes. Aaron is the Lone Wolf Paranormal Investigator. Everyone can go to our Facebook page Within the Chaos, and don't forget to like our page if you don't mind. Appreciate it. This way you can see upcoming guests along with past shows, postings, and you can go to my website, blackdiamondps.org or blogtalkradio.com/Within the Chaos. Also, again, I mentioned it earlier, we have a YouTube site up that has our past shows on them, and so everyone can go subscribe and enjoy our amazing past guests. Thanks again. Until next week, everyone have a safe weekend and good night. Love y'all.
Good night, everyone.
You do better than that. Sweet
dreams.
You got, you just feel the energy. I like that. Good night. Now let me find a song for y'all to play out on. Let's see. I'll play Jerry's. Hey, yeah, Jerry, living days on fire.
Welcome to Total Wine and More. It's much more than a wine store. It's the 8th wonder of the world.
When people talk about Total Wine and More, they get a little carried away. We're just a big, friendly place run by people with a passion for wine and beer.
8,000 different wines, 2,500 different beers.
Maybe we are the 8th wonder of the world.
Come explore at our 12 Northern Virginia locations, now open in Reston at Plaza America Center, across from Whole Foods. Shop online at TotalWine.com.
I'm all about low prices, but not in a cheap way, of course. I have this weird best value superpower. You name it, I can tell you exactly where to go. You need beer? Total Wine and More. Feeling like wine? Duh, Total Wine and More. Whether I'm spicing up game night or I'm grilling with my friends, Total Wine and More always has exactly what I need.
Hey, Ron, your best value superpower is called Total Wine and More, and we are now open in Reston. Click the banner or visit TotalWine.com/go-Reston for more savings at our Reston store.